I was in the dark. I was in black. Yes, hello. Welcome to Life Forum. There's so many titles that we go with every day that it's so interesting to do. Tonight I am Coach She. Let's live with that, right? How is everybody doing? How is everybody doing? Hopefully you're doing well. Today, it was a little bit off because our baby was not feeling the best. And so we ended up having to interrupt a whole planned day in order to get some things taken care of with her. She is much better, thank God. And so now it's been catch up time between this afternoon until this moment. So it feels like I'm sitting down for the first time, kind of just getting my mind right. But I am so grateful for tonight because this is going to be a great conversation. We started this whole idea around, or not an idea, but we know that April is Autism Awareness Month, and we have been having different conversations around the whole idea of autism and neurodivergence. Well, last week's experience kind of erupted into so many other things. And although all of the panelists were not on or stayed on last week, they are here tonight. And we have got questions, comments, thoughts, considerations. And we also have another guest tonight, which I'm really excited about. We have with us Justin McFadden Murray. I think I said that all right, right? And he is a prophet of God, a young man who has an experience with autism. As an adult, we wanted to have a conversation with him about his experience, his life, his space in the church, his space in the world, and just ask some questions as it relates to how certain things or certain systems impact the way that he moves throughout this earth existence, and what other things we can do or work towards that would make it not necessarily easier for people who experience autism, but maybe just invite us to have some additional sensitivities about what these experiences are for different individuals. So I've said a lot. Let me stop talking because the panelists are here with me and I am looking forward to them. Some of them are grayed out, some of them are here. Let's see. Bernicia is joining us from Wilmington, Delaware. Hey, B. How are you? Wait, I don't have a mic on you. Please
I was
tell
having
me.
my good conversation.
Oh, thank you. Because I'm like, okay, if this is a system issue, I'm going to have an issue. So glad to have you
I'm
tonight.
yet holding on.
Listen, what's because you stayed with me the entire time. Wasn't last week phenomenal?
It was. It really was. It was.
Just a whole bunch of thoughts around that and still conversations with those last two young ladies that joined us. And so we want to continue the conversation tonight, probably in a little bit of a different way. We're getting ready to add Bree Jackson, the other Jack, that is joining us this evening. Hello, woman of God.
Summary.
The saints and how they wake up on this space is amazing to me. Thank you for the confetti, my dear. I
You're so welcome.
appreciate. Listen, it's Tuesday and it's a little sluggish, right?
Yes, God.
Yeah.
It's ugly.
It's a little sluggish, but we here. We're running in and out the doors. Let me see. The bishop is here.
Oh,
And, yeah, here we go. Prophet is here. Oh God, he
good.
looked like he is loaded. There he go. The bishop is here. Bless the
Good.
Lord, oh, our soul. Look, it's spirit
Who
fingers.
was that?
Spirit.
It's a slide. It makes me feel like I'm giving very much villain.
Well, with the dim lighting, I feel like every time you're done talking, we're
Mm-hmm.
just gonna go.
Yeah, this is going to be that kind of night. Let me get Prophet on here with us, the first prophet, and then the other prophet, because Justin is already on with us. We're going to have him hold out until 7:30 so that we can get some of these preliminary stuff out of the way. Prophet Adam out of Texas is joining us.
What's going on, everyone's?
Sir.
Bishop,
Oh, you're very far away on tonight.
yeah. Okay, hold on. Bishop, your background looks haunted.
Right. Thank you. Thank
What is
you.
it?
It looks very spooky.
Is that what you're going for? You used to tell me when you first met me that the prophetic was spooky, that people was afraid to come around me. See,
Well,
that's
no.
what that look would look like.
Well, no. I said no. I actually said the opposite. I said you're one of the non-spooky prophets because
Oh,
everybody around us back then used to want to be very spooky.
oh, okay.
Yeah. The first
Yeah.
time I saw a prophet with a tallit on, I was like, I thought that was for Jewish people. And he was like, yeah, he said, we are of the spiritual. I said, never mind. I don't want to
Never
hear
like forget it. No thanks.
it. What's going on, ladies? How are you?
We are good.
Good.
We are good.
I can Coach, let me just tell you, I forgive you. Because I was so offended that you kicked us off and you kept being on. We had questions. We loved the segment. We loved it.
Jealousy does not belong in the house of God.
I didn't say jealousy.
Yeah, no. Adam, we're not going to do this tonight. We're not going to have this fight. No.
You told us up front, right? You said, hey, we'll do this. We're going to switch y'all out, blah, 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 blah. What you did not say, you did not say that them ladies were going to be phenomenal. You did not say that. You didn't give us a heads up. And we off. And I'm sitting here typing up, making notes because it was so good.
It was.
And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to fuss at you afterwards. I'm going to wait till we get back on and let you know, y'all, it wasn't like we didn't want to be on. It was that there was too much brain power. And so Coach kicked me, Bishop, and Bree off, like launched us out into the deep. And we were out there praying. All right, never mind. Okay.
We was praying with Bella.
What's that?
Not Bella.
Please show us Bella. Who is Bella?
Where is Bella?
She downstairs. I told
where
y'all she prays over the living room. That's Pastor Brian and Apostles. That's their grandpup.
You mean that's Annabelle?
No. That's Bella.
Oh no, not Annabelle.
That's Annabelle. That's the Conjuring.
I can only imagine her pup prayers.
Oh my God.
Well, let me say this. We don't when we took Kayla to the doctors today, I was telling my wife because we took her to a new doctor. It's a pediatric doctor, and it happens to be a black woman. Her name is Dr. Nicole. So when she came in, it was so good to see. I was just smiling ear to ear. I was like, look at these professional black women talking to each other. Because I told her, I said one thing about black folk, especially black women, they just have to have an understanding, so they can be very professional but very sister girl at the same time.
Yes.
So it's like it's like they using the big words. It's like, what do you use? Amphetamine? Yeah, like, yes, girl. Like so. So it was like it was very professional but very down to earth, like soul sister kind of thing. It was so good to see. I love black people. I love black people.
Yeah, we don't have great female excellence, black female excellence enough.
Yes,
Absolutely don't.
I'm grateful. He got in the car talking about, look at my 92%er. I said, okay,
Come
we
on.
gotta celebrate. Come on. Yeah, it was good. We had to get the baby girl some assistance today, so I'm grateful that we got through that. Listen, everyone, wherever you are, please share. This is going to be an amazing conversation. It always is, and as you can see, as the prophet has foretold by trying to backdate us to last week, the only reason why they were not allowed to stay on was, number one, we would have had too many blocks and we needed to concentrate the conversation. But I had no awareness that those women were going to be as phenomenal as they were, and they indeed were. So tonight, including the one that stayed with me, BJ, because there's so much experience that she has with that, we're going to answer some questions as we share with Justin, who who has been so gracious as it relates to this. We have some people in common. Apostle Pam is our Auntie Pam, and that's his mommy Pam. And so we're waiting to get connected in this conversation in order to do some overlapping and just get some real good backdrop about this experience. So you still have time to like, share, send this information out, get some people watching the panel. I had some people call me this week and said that they were going to watch tonight specifically because you know what's happening down here in South Florida? There are a lot of ministries that are starting to recognize this neurodivergence in their atmosphere, and now they don't necessarily know what to do with it. And so they are bringing in a lot of different conversation, professional individuals to help them navigate those particular areas. And I'm really excited about that because there is a space for all of us to be in, to live in, and be collective with that. But before we get to that, we are going to hit this. Are you for serious? Did I say that right? Yep, I did. With Lady Bree. And so do you want to talk up this clip before we run it?
I just want y'all to see what the Lord is doing.
Oh my God. You know what?
I want y'all to see what the Lord is doing. That's it.
Okay, so let's see. Y'all ready for it? Listen, pay attention.
Is this the Lord?
Mm-hmm.
Y'all can see it?
Yeah. Oh my God.
I'm not doing this.
I felt the Holy
I'm not
Spirit
doing
all
this.
in that clip.
I didn't. Y'all gotta stop playing with
Y'all
God.
when I saw that, I was like, get the faith out of here.
Well, I'm telling you, when I first saw that, so Brianna, speak towards the video so that people who are watching can understand what they think they saw.
Oh, this gentleman said that he was able to walk on air.
Ripley's Believe It or Not.
He said that he was able to walk on air. I mean, it could be true. If you think about it, we just don't see the whole picture.
That's true. And so when I watched it, right, I said, okay, so I'm watching the video of his feet, and I believe in supernatural things. And so don't get me wrong, I'm watching the video of his feet and I'm like, oh, okay. Then I had to take a second look because, common sense in those areas is not my first suit, right? I'm studious.
People.
So yeah, I'm not one of those. So I sat back and I said, okay, well, why are we watching his feet? Why we didn't watch the whole body? My husband is sitting there and he's saying, did you not see the shadow that was just on the side? I said, no.
Yes, I did.
I saw none of that.
It was demonic.
First of all, you saw the shadow. You saw the shadow of the person that was helping to hold him up, and then when his feet went down, you saw the shadow run away, and then they need to turn the music up because I heard the door close. The guy, whoever helped him, skedaddled right on out there, and then closed the door all the way.
Oh my God!
He was running.
He was running, and then why he let his feet dangle like that? I was bothered.
I think that was the twinkle part for me. I think that's what got me. Like, what are we doing?
The scripture. He had angels in the living room, and in their hands,
I'm not doing that.
They bared him up. I want to say, I believe that was total BS. Okay. And I don't mean belief system. That's not what I mean. I mean the other BS. And we do believe in the supernatural, but like you said, Coach, my first question was, all the money he supposedly got in that house, why aren't there 2 cameras that showed him coming down the steps and then walking on air? This is the type of stuff that makes the authentic look crazy. It discounts the authentic.
Yes.
People play too much.
This what he
Why
was
you
trying
playing?
He was trying to be this. He was trying to be this.
And why is your name Prophet Shepherd? You couldn't just be one?
This is what he was trying to be. Spooky. That's what he was trying to be.
I think the question is he for serious? Was that a joke?
That really is the question.
Or was that like, was that ministry? What was that? Because I want to be in the same vein they in.
I looked him
it
up.
Was
he
a
was
joke?
very serious. He's very serious.
Yeah,
he was very serious.
very serious.
Because if you've seen him minister, then he is a prophet. Like, he is one, and he's out there and he's known everywhere. But that was
so somebody lifted him up.
I don't know, but this is that stuff that makes people laugh. It's just horrible.
Walk the water.
Yes.
You guys are the worst people to be on a serious chat with. It's the
Sir, we need a
But that's why
I want to know.
Oh
Because-
no.
Invite
No.
Because that's why I say
Invite him.
spooky, because spooky don't mean that you're powerful, but spooky is void of power.
Right.
It ain't the Holy Ghost. You one of them ghosts with the blankets over you.
And you're purposely
Booga, 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 booga.
yeah, he's purposely trying to deceive, because he knows that there's people in Africa, in his country, that are going to believe that. There's people that's going to believe that. And it's like, man, and right now, this ain't what we're talking about. But right now, we are in for serious, but for real though, we are dealing with,
I think
there is a whole competition seemingly going back and forth between the prophets and the witches. And that is crazy. And so it's like, we need to stay out of it. Let's stay out of it, because anytime you're sitting there trying to compare your powers to another person, you've immediately disqualified yourself, because it ain't your power anyway.
They need to get them. They need to get the witches off before they even come against witches. They need to get them witches off their intercessory teams first. But that's a whole nother different story.
I love that. My mysterious always.
Because I've always said that a prayer a prayer circle can turn to a coven real quick.
Yeah, I'm writing a book right now, y'all. It's called Christian Witches. So, anywho,
yeah, guys. Yeah. That's got to be a conversation. You were saying, Brianna, you are so grateful that your segments bring so much conversation.
Oh my God.
Lord have mercy.
Now, if we actually want to go with free for all conversation, all we got to do is start with a serious. I'm telling you.
Always. That's a good one. But let me segue here, because we're almost at our time where Justin is going to join us. I want to show you all this, and it's going to lead a lot into our conversation. My husband found this earlier today, and I loved it when I saw it. So I want you all to see a display of oh gosh, what was the title that he called himself? He is a neurodivergent. He is on the spectrum. Let him speak for himself. Let's do that.
My name is Savant Deshaun Devereaux, and I am autistic. Happy Autism Awareness Month. The whole month, just for people like me and you. This is my first one, so I'm excited. I don't necessarily know what I'm supposed to be doing, but I am, so feels like that's enough. I am autistic, I have savant syndrome. I'm a gesticulator. I don't know ASL yet. I am learning right now, but gesticulation helps me speak whenever verbal frequencies get hard, whenever I don't have a mask on. So that's why my hands and my words kind of do a little beautiful dance. I'm a former dancer, so this kind of feels innate to me. I identify as a non-verbal human who has the ability to mask and speak verbal frequencies, but when no one's around, or when certain people are around who know how I am, I'm usually nonverbal. I sometimes carry a dry erase board so I can write down things so I don't have to become verbal and I can still join in on conversation in real time. So, kind of cool to explain that to you all. I am a hyper empath, which is kind of self-explanatory. I love big and I love hard. Don't regret any of them. Kind of require them within myself. That's how I know the love is real. Want everyone to meet every part of me. And hope you all have a great day. Have an amazing Autism Awareness Month. Want everyone to meet every part of me.
Oh, that had a double background. What y'all think of that young man?
That was pretty cool.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he say he's an empath?
Yes.
What was the name of it? Where is he at on the
He
spectrum?
didn't have a level. He said that he has savant syndrome.
What is that?
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
And so that, Brian, you looked that up this morning, right, babe? When you were
Yeah.
talking about it. What was the definition of that space?
Savant syndrome is, hold on, let me look it up again. Savant from what, hold on, wait a minute. Savant syndrome.
I actually thought that was really important when he said that, because there are so many different distinctions in the spectrum. When most people think autism, they just think one way, but the reason why they relabeled it and now call it ASD is because the range is wide. So when we think about savant, we think about highly intelligent, highly gifted. He was talking about his gesticular, he's a gesticulator, so he talks, he chooses not to talk. And he's more comfortable in nonverbal spaces unless he has to mask and has to talk. And I thought that that was phenomenal, because I actually think that Kayla is one of those individuals that is choosing not to talk, but can, because that feels different for her. So just understanding that whole experience is amazing. Go ahead, babe.
Savant syndrome is a phenomenon where someone demonstrates exceptional aptitude in one domain, such as art or mathematics, despite significant social or intellectual impairment.
So for the young man, his giftedness was in that empath and the dance area, the creative arts, which he probably would thrive in, because I've seen some other videos of his, and he is an excellent dancer.
Yeah, when I saw it, when I came across it, I immediately followed him, and he's an excellent dancer. It seems like this was his first time ever exposing himself as someone who is on the spectrum, because from what it looks like, a lot of his videos are just him dancing, or not necessarily him communicating, but just him. But this is his first time. Which he said it was his first autism awareness, which means it probably is his first time actually openly celebrating it.
Yeah.
Hey, Coach, are all of the labels necessary? You know, in some spaces, labels are used to wrongly identify, and then the label is used to correctly identify. And he does come off absolutely as a savant, but then there's the syndrome. And so I'm wondering, how healthy are all of the labels? How healthy is it for someone to say, even though it's not what someone would do, I completely identify as this, or I identify as that. I struggle at times to totally embrace the I identify as, because my whole struggle is, how do I embrace you and not mentally judge whatever it is the individual said? So how do these labels work? Because he gave a bunch of identifiers that he seems completely okay with, right? And he's absolutely brilliant. but having been identified in certain spaces his whole life, seemingly, for those of us who are coming into a new understanding of not being so judgmental, how do we work through this thing with all these labels?
I wrote that question down because that's going to be so powerful as we start this conversation.
Okay.
Let me get Justin in. Let's get some content and context around him, and we've got to answer this question and include him on that, because there's a school of thumb that talks about labels limit. Then there's another school of thumb that we don't need labels in order to just be who we are. There's another school of thumb that says, rule of thumb, or school of thought that says that, labels open us up to certain areas, especially on the spectrum, because of the things that may come with it. I find that there are a lot of individuals in certain constructs that struggle with labeling because they still have a problem with this thing that they may know that they experience themselves, but they don't want to. So oftentimes we are stonewalling the label, not about someone else, but about the potential of ourselves. But that's just in some cases. And so when we went through that phase of people not wanting us to identify as Black, we went from the Afro-American to African-American and all of those things. And as we lived in certain spaces, there were a lot of things that became real important to us because that was a part of our identity. When somebody would say to me, well, you're just a person, we don't need labels, but that piece of me is important for me. You may be uncomfortable with me displaying it, but listen, you're going to see this display. I can't change it. So, and I want that identity because it is me. It makes it, it's a makeup that is mine. And so that's such a heavy conversation, because it can go so many places. I saw something today, even when I was thinking about this, and somebody made a post, and I said, oh God, this is really, really, it was interestingly disturbing to me, because it felt like they needed to say that autism was a disability so that we don't identify with a handicap. But autism is not a disability. Autism is a disorder. It's a different way of thinking. Now, can it create disabilities that you can work through? Yes. But the statement seems so rejecting that it isolates a whole group of individuals that use that difference or that neurodivergence in order to maximize potentials that in some cases we have had to diminish, because if we were fully who we were in our different thinking self, people would probably judge us harshly. Which is why most of us, including my counterparts in the church world, we mask a whole lot. We mask a whole lot, and it doesn't have to be around neurodivergence. It can be around anything. Masking is just masking, but hold that thought. Justin is here with us, and we will get this conversation started, and I don't want to do that without him. So Justin McFadden is with us tonight, guys, and we will have the opportunity to have this conversation from his perspective, growing up and experiencing autism in his way, being a prophet in the Lord's church, moving in that construct, and seeing how that difference enhances his ministry, enhances his life, all of those different pieces. So he's just been in the background looking at us laughing and carrying on with this conversation. So I'm excited to bring him on. Justin, thank you for joining us tonight.
It's a pleasure. It's been challenging with autism throughout the years with me. I got sort of diagnosed at like 30 years old, but I'd always been suspected since I was a kid.
Okay.
So I couldn't talk till I was maybe about 4 or 5 years old. I had a lot of problems with coordination. I had just eye contact and everything that I worked on with God's help. And it's just been challenging throughout the years because it made people not be able to understand me. My mind can go from one thing to another, but it's helped me to realize, as Apostle Pam has told me many times, that I have what she calls special abilities,
Mhm.
which my last fiance had a problem with because she said, "Well, why is she calling it special abilities?" And it took me a while to realize that I just think differently, and my mind just functions differently.
Mhm. Yeah, did it take you a long time? First of all, let me introduce everybody. In the top corner is Brian Morris. I'm in the middle block. On top of you is Bernicia Jackson. Over on the bottom block is Brianna Jackson. And right next to you is another fellow prophet, Adam Watson. And
Mm.
so we are all engaging in this conversation tonight because it was so beneficial, even when we watched last week, just individuals who are relating to or raising children. When you openly talked about your experience, I was like, wow, this is, it's essential, because I think that a lot of times people as adults don't recognize that this is an area that they may have experienced, but they're afraid to engage it for so many different reasons. So you said that when you were 31, you got diagnosed, but you suspected it, right? When you were
Well,
younger.
my mother suspected it. I went through the whole learning challenges within school, special ed, all that.
Okay. Okay. And by the time you got the diagnosis, because you were now an adult of age,
Mhm.
how did it
Mhm.
make you feel?
Well, uh, the the diagnosis sort of made me feel like, well, I want to do all this stuff in my life, and so how is that going to impact me? And I think because I had the support of Apostle Pam, my family, and just some friends and everything, I was able to understand that my being preoccupied or fixated on things does not mean that I'm strange. I used to be preoccupied with dinosaurs and building things as a kid. And my brother, when we went through this thing with me being diagnosed as being on Asperger, he made fun of it. He was like, "Oh, you used to like dinosaurs." I was like, "Well, I always liked that as a kid."
Mhm.
And I guess what it was my being attracted to science and things like that.
That's interesting, because sometimes we don't even recognize that the special ability is being shown in what the child or what the young person is fixated on, but we immediately want to move them away from that fixation and make them what I call normalized. Do something
Mhm.
else, like be something else.
Mhm.
And sometimes that we redirect our children, right, in order
Mhm.
for them to have a more what we call quote unquote normalized experience. But if somebody was really paying attention to that in you back then, they may have picked up on the fact that you were very attracted to science, right?
Yeah, I mean, because I had told my mother I wanted to be a doctor when I was younger and I wanted to mess around with science. And she sort of discouraged it because what doctors had said and just what their mindset was, and them hinting that, I was going to be in special ed the rest of my life, and,
Mhm.
being able to go to college and ace my classes just, and I attribute that for going through PAMI when I was younger and just being able to sit in with all of the apostles and the prophets, that they infused their intelligence in my mind, and it broke something in my life. Whereas before I couldn't write very well and I couldn't, really think the way that I needed to think. And
Mhm.
so those environments, from the time I was like 21 years old to when I moved to Tulsa, it helped to unlock things. Listening to messages over and over again gave me the ability to recall certain prophecies that were said, certain things that were brought forth in the message. And even when I read the books, it unlocked my mind in a way that helped me to be a better student.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can I?
Just, you said you went to college. Hold on for a second, Adam. Justin, you said you went to college. What did you graduate with?
I went to associates. I went to first. I went to TCC, which is Tulsa Community College. I was studying religious studies. I transferred back to Boston to go to Bunker Hill, graduated with paralegal, and now I'm studying my bachelor's at UMass Boston to get my degree in psychology. I want to get my master's and my doctorate in clinical psychology.
Come on, that's why we talking. That is exactly why we're talking, because he's the one that asked us to do the segment on how mental health and prophecy, how that influences each other. And so I'm working on that for May. I got some people lined up that's going to do a conversation around that. So hold tight. And if there's any level of support that you need as it relates to that process, because I've passed the master's process, we're in the doctoral process now, you please let me know, because there's a lot of information out here. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Adam, ask a question.
Justin, it's a pleasure to meet you, sir. Here's my question for you. So I looked up the word autistic, and it says a pervasive development disorder of children characterized by impaired communication, excessive rigidity, and emotional detachment. Next verse, next portion. A tendency to view life in terms of one's own needs and desires. The reason why I've always had a problem with these definitions, sir, is because it sounds like it's a season of life. Everybody, if we're going by this definition, then everybody has a season of autism, or steps into a place where they have impaired communication, excessive rigidity, emotional detachment, or viewing life in terms of one's own needs and desires. As a prophet, right, you are dealing with number one, you're gifted. You're gifted on one hand, and it almost seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it almost seems like in the same vein of you being gifted, that giftedness is being negatively defined as autism. And for somebody who I've always wondered if I was autistic, because I think differently than other people. I love math and I love science. Some people think I am. Some people think I have a disorder. I don't know what it would be. I seem totally fine to myself, but but I'm wondering how did you navigate your giftedness being defined as a disorder?
Okay, that's a loaded question, so I'll give you the short one. When I was about 21 years old, about 21 years old, I started having a lot of encounters with the Lord. And I'm not talking about like a vision, I'm talking about like I've seen him face to face and all that stuff. And I started hearing him telling me that he wanted me to go to the nations and all that stuff when I was younger. So when I started trying to come into my young adult years, my mother, being the pediatric nurse that she was, took me to a doctor and they started labeling me as bipolar. And so I was going through the phase of, I don't want to hear that, whatever. It took me coming to Tulsa to have my Apostle Pamphlet, to help me to understand that my mind goes from one way to another on polar regions, and that there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that we have to get it under control. So I went through a phase where I went through medicine and everything, And I'm still on that after I had a nervous breakdown about 14 and a half years ago, which is why I'm in Massachusetts. But I've had to deal with navigating my gift and understanding that I was called to be a prophet from my mother's womb, but having to deal with the fact of family thinking there was something really odd with me when I left the Catholic Church at 17 to follow this God that called me, that pulled me out of trying to kill myself at 16 years old and said, I have much more for you to do than you realize. Don't kill yourself. And I said, God, if you're real, show yourself to me. So when I started having these encounters with him, my mother, being the person that she was, made sure that when I left Tulsa, I left Boston to go to Tulsa, that it was understood that if I come back here, you're going to drop this religious junk, because she felt that there was no way in the world I was a minister. This was a preoccupation. So I dealt with a lot of rejection from my family, a lot of not being understood. And even within the church, they didn't understand me. Different ones that tried to place schizophrenia on me when I was younger through deliverance ministry. And I had to have those words of power and authority broken off me by Apostle Pamphlet. Um, and it's just like people didn't understand it. They didn't understand that I was just different. I've come to learn how to accept myself. It is a struggle, which is wondering why I wasn't created like everybody else. But I guess that's the way that God wanted me to be, so that I could reach people that other people can, or just to explain things that people can't, you know.
Justin, let me tell you why I love your answer. And I love your vulnerability with that, because I think sometimes we put disorders in a demonic category, and we do human individuals a disservice by attempting to suggest that if there is something that is out of balance, then it is not purely perfect or made by God in his image. And that is the biggest mistake that people have made about difference. We are scared of difference. Anything that is non-managed, we could have anything out of balance, and if it's normalized, it will be accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Autism, neurodivergence brings about a different kind of experience with individuals, because if you really look at that, whether you want the label or not, I am not an individual. I think it took me coming into the field of mental health in order to understand the stronghold of how much people could fear labels versus spending their time honoring more of their difference, so that it is not confining to them, because we spend a lot of time in our own self-judgment. The other judgment is hard, but the self-judgment is harder, especially if you are surrounded by people who say your difference is off and we're not going to make room for that.
Mm-hmm.
Your answer was stellar to me, and I really, really am grateful, because two things you highlight, and I want you to speak to this. Number one, you highlight your community, and Apostle Pam is that kind of girl, right? That's our Auntie Pam. She's that kind of girl, right? Tell us how important having a community that you can thrive in, how important that is for anybody who has a different type of thinking that has a label or a term.
I think that my earlier years when I was in church, it was hard for me being in the Black church, and part of it was, and I'm just gonna say this: when we look at Mariah Carey and we look at, you know, Alicia Keys, and we look at people like, all these people that are mixed, you can say, oh, we know they're mixed because they're brown. I came out of my mom and my father's relationship that was illegitimate to begin with. I mean, they weren't married and they were just like, you know, they
Yes, they can see me.
they were
Hi.
they were
Oh my God.
he
Guess what
he was a
happened?
he was a
Aiden,
black
Aiden.
man, she was a white woman, so I came out this shape. And so growing up in the black church, it was hard because they didn't understand me. They thought I was making it up. They thought I wanted to just say whatever. I was mixed and they judged me and everything. When I came to Apostle Pam, she was one of the first people that embraced me and said, you are, who you are. And she finally saw it and said, you're biracial. So, she would always joke around with me and try to, whatever, but she accepted I was part black. But it was, I think, being in the black church also, they didn't understand why I was the way I was. They thought it was, okay. All right. They thought that it was some demonic issues with my life or whatever. And it was hard. It was hard for me to fit in when I came to Tulsa. I'm not saying that it was a perfect experience, but it was wonderful for me to get around the generals of the faith and get to ask them questions and be able to learn.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I had to deal with people who had inflated egos, who thought that they had arrived, and I had to learn what being a servant was. The first thing that God told me when I left for Tulsa, when I was in Back Base Station, he said, you're going to learn what greatness is, and what you're also going to learn is how to serve. And that was one of the hardest things in the world, to learn how to serve when I was not out there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned how to be a son, and I've watched people say they're the son of the ministry and they're nothing but bastards and everything. So when I had to learn how to just be quiet and watch and observe, it was not the easiest thing, because there were times I wanted to flow, I wanted to go forth, and a lot of the times, Apostle Pam wanted me to sit down and be quiet so that I could be healed from the traumas of my past, and that I could understand that this is a lot more than just being on a stage. I mean, I've learned so many of these guys, that the one that you just had on recently, with the floating shoes. The problem I had with him is that that's chicanery. Okay. That is straight up chicanery,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of these guys like Prophet Lovey Ellis and all these other guys are disgrace to this thing. I mean, one of the things that I learned with my gift was that God will use you, but that doesn't mean he always approves you. So being, with the dynamic of being biracial, learning later on I became manic, and having ADD, dyslexia, and concentration issues with Asperger, it became challenging. I mean, I found out people didn't want to be my friends, and then there were people who wanted to be my friends. So with the community, it helped me to understand how to be secure in myself. And I went back to school because of Pammy's program, and it helped me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I love that.
So I was first off, shout out to also Vanette. When I met her, and I served with her daughter Melody once a month. So shout out to her. I love the fact that the first time I actually met her was because of Coach Shizetta. And when I told her I knew her, she was like, "All right, you're my nephew now." So she just claimed me. But one of the things is up until Shizetta, and Shizetta is a different breed. But most of the prophets I knew before her were very exclusive. You're out of our box unless we welcome you in. They were
Mm-hmm.
welcoming. Apostle Pam was very welcoming to the point where she came and sat next to me, and her consecration convicted me. I don't know how else to say that. The girl was with God, and I was like, I need to get closer. So shout out to her. I've never had a bad experience with Prophet Lovey, so I can't speak to that, and I won't speak to other people's ministries and stuff like that. Because I was thinking, my favorite show is my favorite cartoon was The Invincibles, and the villain in The Invincibles, he started creating all these gadgets to match what the Invincibles were doing, because he said, when I'm trying to make everybody special, because when everybody's special, then no one will be. And so the point was that he was going out of his way, because he did not like the fact that these cats were just different. And I guess we're in the world that we're living in, the kingdom has always said, we're special. We're a royal priesthood. We're a holy nation. We're a chosen people. And my point I'm coming back to is, I grew up in a generation where prophets got known for being pessimistic. Prophets were known for being skeptical. And most of the ones I grew up with weren't kind. That's why I said Shazetta was an anomaly. She was skipping jump rope while she was in the flow, and she's always been kind. Here's my question: how do we minister to other gifts? And I'm really posing this question to you, Coach, and you, Bishop. How do we minister to other amazing gifts in the body, who like Justin, wasn't diagnosed until he was 31, didn't know, who like me, I didn't start feeling like I had areas of autism until I was 24, 25, and the question was becoming like, what's wrong with me? So how do we minister to amazing gifts? Here goes my point. Amazing gifts, and how do y'all pull us back? These amazing gifts pull us back from going to war with those who negatively identified us, didn't understand that whole thing. Because there's a lot of people who are going to watch this who are gifted, prophets, apostles, pastors, teachers, evangelists, the whole nine, but they've been subdued or compressed by those labels. And so I was just thinking, Justin, while you were talking, I was thinking about one of the comedians. He was from Africa, and back in those times of apartheid, being born multiracial was being born a crime. So you're literally being raised under, that's the word, Jesus, thank you. You're being raised under that stigma. You're being raised under a I found it's very difficult to get out from a stigma. Shazetta knows it was very hard for me to get out from what I used to be identified or connected with. That was very difficult. So how do we do that? How do we help and bring ministry spaces to those of us who never knew we were broken, rephrase, never knew there was an issue, rephrase, never knew that we had been identified or labeled incorrectly? Again, I only ask loaded questions. So
Yeah, let me break some of those pieces down because I want us to address it. I think what I'm hearing you say, I'm reading it back. How do we minister to gifts in the body, to those amazing gifts in the body, and keep them from going to war with other individuals who have either mislabeled them or have suppressed them by with labels?
Right, because a lot of them are fighting. They're 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 brilliant, but they're still fighting to belong, or force themselves into spaces where they're not welcome. And it's not the kingdom that they're not welcomed in; it's the circles or the sects or the cults, or whatever that the divisions that are keeping them out. And so when they I'll give you a great example. When Juanita Bynum did No More Sheets, one of the most amazing, well-known sermons in the world, but she spent a lot of time talking about how she was bound, and in some spaces, she killed some situations that she could have been a help to. So she finally got free, and now she's going to turn around and she's going boom, 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 boom. So, and in that space, she came back later and said that she realized she actually wasn't healed. And you know me, my struggle, I struggled with bitterness and rage for about 7 years, and it was connected to spiritual people. So with these amazing things these amazing gifts on the inside, but I wouldn't go out and speak or do what I was supposed to do because I knew that if a mic was in my hand, I was going to unleash him. So how do we heal from these spaces? Because it seems like a lot of us, what I've been experiencing over the past several months of even being connected to the Life Forum is I'm running into a lot of people who are like, wow, and they're enlightened, right? Now they understand certain things about themselves. And in that enlightenment, they're like, why didn't nobody tell me? And now the enemy tries to imbalance their enlightenment with offense. So,
well, here's the thing. I think, yeah, it's very loaded. So let me pull some of those pieces together, and then Justin, I want you to speak to it, and anybody else who will. Right. So first of all, I think that the church culture in itself has a click issue. Period. It doesn't have to be about neurodivergence or neurodivergence inclusive of dyslexia, ADHD, any of those types of things. We have just completely disregarded mental health
yes, ma'am.
as even a healthy thing to talk about or consider. And because we have demonized that, now, we were taught literally not to look at it and just focus on spiritual things until the Lord, and I say that it was God, brings the earth into another realm of itself, and it concentrates on the Jesus part of the Christ. And it starts to make us pay attention to our humanity, our soul space, our mind space, all of those areas that are supposed to do the greater works. Well, we can't do greater works without addressing our the supernatural existence that lives in us. Now, if we're honest, the supernatural existence that lives in us does not look like neurodivergence, but I'm telling you, it probably is. That neurodivergent space is where this is probably a huge part of where our the creativity will be heightened. Those advances will be much sharper. But because we are so committed to distancing ourselves from what looks different, that's been an issue in the church culture, period. But because we have committed to it, now when we have this other sect where God is dealing with mental mind, mental miracles, mental expansion, we can't even organize ourselves to say, what does this look like when a person can focus 100% of their energy in maximizing creativity, but they can't be around other people. They might have an anxiety. They might have social skills. It doesn't impact their brain. We just can't appreciate how they function. And because we are anti-difference,
Wow.
we are anti this. And that is, I think, a big part of our problem. We are anti so much that now when there is something new being released in the earth and God is organizing it, we can't see it for what it is. We'll say, oh, well, you got to conquer so much. Well, I will tell you that Kayla has taught us to listen more and speak less. That when we think about how God spoke to Adam, it was telepathic, it was not vocal. When we think about all of the type of energy and creativity and frequency that we miss out on in our minimalistic spaces, and then say we are the natural, normal expression of God, then we limit how much more will come out of us. I believe that when Dr. Rick Daniels came to the house in Chester, Pennsylvania, and he kept coming to Delaware and messing us up all the time with this indigo child experience and crystal child experience, I think he was talking about these children. And we have got to work out our anti-difference attitude and look at people from a different perspective, because we see diagnosis and say you're not qualified. No, that's not what diagnosis is.
Right.
Diagnosis just addresses what makes you disconnected from yourself and aids to help bring you into perfect alignment with yourself. Because when you're in perfect alignment with yourself, you are at your most maximum. My alignment doesn't have to be yours. If my brain is, if you got to stay up all night, just don't interrupt me while I sleep. And I have that in my house.
That's me.
Listen, we are opposites in our nature, in our thinking. And then it takes effort to find the levels of communication, whether vocal, body, mental thinking, awareness. We've got to work through that in order to come to camaraderie. But oftentimes we are so committed to our anti-difference that we refuse to address anything that doesn't look like us. Then we get challenged when we see ourselves in the difference, and then we're like, oh my God, nobody's going to accept me. So then we mask, we hide. Our issue is not neurodivergence. Our issue is anti-difference. Somebody else talk, because I feel heat all over me. There's a reason why God has allowed this to enter into this season, and we are paying this kind of attention and having this kind of awareness. There's a reason. You cannot convince me. And I was in the room. Layla was with me. I remember it. She was 2. So it was 12 years ago when that man of God, we was all in Arizona, and all of a sudden he was preaching, Dr. Daniels, and all of a sudden out of his mouth, he started to declare mental miracles. I will never forget it, because at that moment, I knew that that was my mission. I went back to school for what I'm in now. And now I see how I'm starting to see how the, our ability to really focus on epigenetics, the understanding of the mind, the maximization of the mind, how much we use of our mind, the different pathways that the mind will can create. If you've got nerve damage, your brain is already ready to compensate for what is already missing. There's so many things that take place in our supernatural body that we don't maximize, but we are so busy trying to pattern what looks normal.
I was going to say, I think that going back to something that Adam said, I don't know if I'm phrasing this correctly, but I think you were saying about the labeling.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot exactly what you said. I think that labeling can be a blessing and a curse depending on what side of the situation that the equation that you're in, I guess, so to speak.
Mhm.
Because for people like I'm sorry, what's your name again?
Justin.
Justin. I'm sorry, Justin. For people like Justin who may have been diagnosed late in life, the labeling was like a relief. Or like, okay, all right, well, this is what's like things start that makes it kind of pull all of the pieces of the puzzle together. It's like all of this time, this is what has been going on with me. Um, on the other side of that, I think that we can you no, you cannot. Have a good day. Have a good day, Ada. Yes, it is. Goodbye.
I love Aiden.
He
He
do-
always comes
we
at
love
the
his cameos.
yes.
It's too much. Excuse me. Ada, out later. Thank you. Have a good night. Yes, later. Okay, let me call Uncle Boo. No. Goodbye. Okay.
What's his statement be?
Okay. So what I was saying was,
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying on the other side of that, I think that people who do not know how to deal with people who fall in the spectrum or have any type of neurodivergence, I guess, so to speak, it helps them too to be able to know how to proceed.
Mm-hmm.
Because I understand, like now, I might be freeing myself because I said I would never tell, and my son's gonna know that he has autism when he gets older, but I'm not like, oh, you have autism, so you can't do such and such. Like I don't want my son, I don't want the his diagnosis to become a disability.
Mm-hmm.
And prematurely, I'm going to say
Mm-hmm.
prematurely, because sometimes we set limits on people based upon what we think we know, and we haven't even gave them an opportunity to even explore or even attempt to do things because we've already said that they can't.
Yes.
So when I go into my IEP meetings with my son, I don't y'all, huh? I thought I heard somebody say something. Like when they, as a part of an IEP, they set like their goals for the year, like, oh, this is what we think that he can do. Or when they start talking about minimizing work, well, I'm not saying overwhelm my son, but don't water down stuff if you haven't given him the original work.
Mm-hmm.
See what he can do first before you start telling him what he can't.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this might be too much. This might be too much. Oh, this might be too much. I get it, but no, let's figure that out first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because there are a lot of that's what I was saying.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of things that um he could possibly do or know, but you've already told him that he can't.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that like labeling to a degree is necessary,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes it's not necessary
Mm-hmm.
because there are so many. Like I'm new to this. Like my son's only been diagnosed with autism for the last 3 years. Um, so there's a lot of things that I do not know, but I'm open. I'm open to learning. I have to be. Because at one point my son is going to plateau and then it's going to be okay. All right, now we finally arrived at a point where I need to have all of the information that I need for him to move forward. But right now he's still in the developmental phases because he's in the developmental phases of his life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but for someone who is in the adult phase, it's a lot harder because it's like you're catching up, but you're really not. Everybody else around you has to now catch up because it's like, okay, I got this going on. All right, I'm over here, y'all. This is where y'all need to be.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on,
But
Justin,
yeah,
do you ever plateau?
I think that I've increased. I mean, there probably have been moments where I plateaued. I know when I was in high school and they had me with IEPs and that special needs program. I mean, I was able to get out of just the resource classes and get into like mainstreaming to a point in my sophomore through my senior year. And but I still felt like I went through plateaus that I felt like there was just this mental block there. And I think also coming through just being a survivor of just all kinds of abuse as a child and not being able to speak vocally about what was going on. And even when I was able to speak, not being able to speak. And I feel like that plateaued me to the point where I wasn't able to, you know, do what the church would say, you know, resist the devil and you will flee. Because the way I was taught was if you struggle with things too long, it's you willfully want to be there. And it was out of just a lot of the things I went through,
Wow.
a lot of the turmoil I went through as a kid, and a lot of the things where my mother was abusive at times, and you know, I wasn't able to speak to what that was. And so I think I plateaued to some extent, and then I think that I've evolved past the plateauing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I probably would. Yeah, I can see that. And as an adult, I know Bree has a question, and so I want you to come next. As an adult, Justin, I think that to Bernicia's point, a lot of times we focus that energy on the children, but the children are in a developmental stage, period. And so as they're learning what will be beneficial to them, what they can handle, what they cannot, they get to narrate what or how, if necessary, that condition impacts them or not. Because a lot of things they grow through and grow around, right? But then there's some other spaces, those things that you can't see, that they still function, and they say, yes, this is how I think, this is how I can react, this is how I can respond. And so I think one of the things, B, that I struggle with a lot is that we have created the spectrum, the thought of the spectrum as just a behavior issue, and it's not. So we look at behaviors and say, those are bad kids. No, they've got processing issues. Kayla has sensory processing issues, and so she processes very heavily. Sometimes she can't organize all of the noise. She's gotten better over the last 6 years, though. But there's some spaces earlier on she could not handle. Some spaces she can be outside. We live by an Air Force base. She can't handle the noise. She comes in the house. She covers her ears. Sometimes she runs to the bed, covers her head. We have to have noise canceling headphones, and then right, the material on it irritates her, so she can't wear that for long periods of time. If my child could run around here without clothes on because of the material, she probably would. There's just so many different sensitivities that they come to either get used to or not. So when they come into their adult space, they get to navigate how that impacts them. But we have children that are acing in school, reaching high levels, moving in professions, and they still have to monitor and manage themselves at whatever area of the spectrum that they are on. So that speaks to a powerful point, B, and thank you for saying that, because our children are more than just their behaviors. They're kids, and they will develop in and out of things, in and out of things. Their hormones are going to hit, and they're going to still have teenage experiences just because, that reality. So thank you for highlighting that. Bree, come ask your question, and Adam, I'm going to get back to that noise space for you.
Hi, Justin. Please forgive me because I don't recall you answering this, but if you're repeating yourself, I'm just asking. Please forgive me. I just want to know, with your diagnosis and or your neurodivergence, does it have an impact on the way that you receive prophetic messages and how you actually would give it to someone?
Wow.
Like to
Well,
give the message, to whoever's supposed to receive it.
well, for me, sometimes I still struggle with looking people in the eyes, but I've gotten a lot better. So when I give prophetic words, I had to learn over the years to simplify it enough that people actually don't think you're crazy when you're giving it. Like back before they stuck me on all this lithium and stuff, I could see like stuff that you would see in the book of Ezekiel or like Marvel comics or whatever. I would see all that and I would just like tell people and they would think it was like really, really strange. I tend to just say what I see by faith. A lot of times I will just tell them in a conversation without going into the whole, yea, my child, or the word of the Lord will come unto you. Though I do every now and then do, and the word of the Lord will come unto you saying. But I am trying to be as realistic with people, down to earth with people, and the autism doesn't affect it. I think it more makes it able for me to understand high concepts and to write it down and everything. But that doesn't affect me. It's my mood swings can swing me in a way that affects me sometimes. But autism has never affected me from seeing in the realm of spirit. It just makes it more interesting that I just see all these really high conceptual things and he just lets me see.
Yeah, I love that because you describe X-Men technology. That's really what you describe. And there, if you've ever watched the X-Men movie, I hope all of you have. It's a strange thing to approach, but when you think about the idea of the guy who recognizes that there are individuals with special gifts who were being killed for their special gifts, so he creates a space where he brings them so that they could have safety. Listen, that's a whole prophetic demonstration in and of
Yes.
itself that I think that people are missing a lot of times. And so, very great question, because I think we will miss the mind of God by looking at somebody's behavior or demeanor, which is why we need to get away from this anti-difference. We got to know the listen, didn't they say that we got to know the spirit by the spirit? If the spirit of God is existing, then it exists in many different levels and hits you at the point of where you can receive that. I think that that is important. So as we have labels, they don't have to limit, but what we do find ourselves being is individuals who have biases that we will not address. And I think that that's a concern. I think that that's an indictment about all of us who sometimes refuse to expand, explore, and evolve and really get challenged with that. So, Brianna, thank you for that question. This is Brian's aunt in Chester asking this question. I think we have a young cousin who is, she says, my great grandson is on the spectrum. We are working on trying to potty train him. He's 4, somewhat nonverbal. And so, how do we as a family navigate and help him understand potty training and help him, I guess, get to some level of communication? He also hates noise. For us, listen, it will look different from with everybody. That's why the spectrum is the spectrum. No one person is the same. So Aunt Emma, I'll speak this to you, and then anybody else can add if they have experience, Bernicia, and even Justin, if you have some recollection as it relates to this. Wherever there is a deficit, find a resource for. So I know here in Pennsylvania, one of the things that we have access to is a registered behavioral therapist that works with them to help with those kinds of transition spaces. Kayla did not need assistance with potty training. That child was so determined. She just did it and then was done. She did not need a process. When she was ready to do it, she did it and was just on to next. And I said, okay, well, yes, ma'am. Because that's how she did that. There were other people who need assistance as it relates to that. And so there are therapists that work with children in order to get them through those phases, and families. I want to encourage you with this. Don't forget that the child is a child. Don't, and I'm saying that from myself, because as soon as I was with Kayla when we got the diagnosis, and all kinds of things was going on in my mind. Brian was at the plant, And I called him and he said, tell me what they said. And we was talking through it, and I'm all kinds of things was going on in my mind. And immediately I went into, let me shelter my baby, let me shield her from the world, let me, trying to figure that all out. It took me 2 years to recognize that little determined chick was running circles around me. And somebody had to ultimately say to me, she's a child. And when I put those two pieces together, it helped me understand that Kayla is determined. She's stubborn like her mama for sure. She got strong will. She's gonna do what she wants. She's gonna say yes. She's gonna say no. She's been slow in coming into her words, but every now and again she will speak full sentences, and we'd be like, "Where did that come from?" She's been holding on to it the entire time, but she's choosing not to speak. There's a lot of determination in how they process the world. And so don't despise the fact that they are a child. Take them through the process that you took your other children through, right? And if you need speech therapy, seek that out. Just because they're nonverbal now doesn't mean that they will forever be nonverbal. There are children that are on the spectrum that wait to talk till they're 11, 12. And so those concepts are there. RBT is a therapist, the speech therapist, occupational therapy, even physical therapy can be helpful. So reach out and look into those resources so that they can provide consistent support for your grandson. And let me know. I need to probably call you and just kind of see what that process is looking like up there for you, so that we can send you some more resources and get you connected in some other spaces, because we do want to help. But don't give up, because what you see today could be very different in 2 years.
Apostle,
Yeah.
how old was Kayla when you potty trained? When she was fully potty trained?
When she was fully potty trained, well, when she showed us that she was,
Decided.
right, she was 4.
Okay, I'm about to say.
She was 4. And so we was concerned, because I think Brian and I was at the place where we was like, oh my God, we didn't want her to go to school if people had to change her. There was one time she had to have teeth work done, and they had to put her under anesthesia. And I remember, babe, you remember this, where we had another child who was there. And that young man was 12 years old, and he was still wearing a diaper. And I remember standing there, and I said, God, please don't let this be our experience. And it wasn't me judging their experience. I just got immediately afraid of having her be exposed in spaces where other people would have to touch her, and she didn't know how to protect herself. And so I think I just started praying. And she did not want us to take her. She did not want to do a process of every hour. That was not her thing. She said, I'm gonna do this when I want to. And that's what she did.
I have a question. I'm listening to Justin, and I've had experiences of seeing Kayla and Aiden. My question is, even though every situation is different, I'm watching, I'm observing levels of independence. And so when it comes to being gifted on the spectrum, as parents, the coach, Bishop, are y'all concerned that, I'm not going to ask this question right, so please rephrase it. Y'all know my heart. Are y'all concerned that autism means parenting for a lifetime? Or do most, from a research statistics spot, do most people who are gifted or autistic or on the spectrum, do most of them gain their levels of independence as they develop, as they grow up? I don't want to put everybody in the same box, because we're having a completely normal conversation with Justin, and I don't want people to say Justin's fine, everybody else is going to be fine. So, all right, that was my question.
Yeah, Justin, you speak to that from your lived experience where you are now, because I don't know how old you are now, but I know that you are an adult male. Do you? How
Yeah.
your process been?
Well, when I was 27 years old, I moved out on my own, and that was about 23 years ago. And so I lived on my own. I did have just issues living on my own, getting into trouble and everything like that, but more or less keeping myself living independently. And then I had my breakdown, and then my family put me in group homes, and then I basically had to live with my brother. My mother recently just passed, but um, I've had to worry about almost 50 years old. I'm about to graduate. Hopefully, if I can get everything paid up, I can graduate soon. And then I want to move out of state and then go back to school and get my master's and my doctorate, and then basically go get married and everything. And it's been a challenge because work has not been the easiest thing in the world for me. I've done everything from courier work on a bicycle to be a security officer to stock shelves to mopping floors to all that. And I've been able to take care of myself without my family. And then I've had to go to school, be in doctor's offices, go take medication, and it's made it hard for me to work again. But when I have worked, I've been able to put a roof over my head and feed myself. But I did come into a bunch of debt for the second time. But I'm working on it.
Mm-hmm. I love that because everybody's experience will be different, and that sounds like life, right? It sounds exactly like life, but then there's this extra space of um, things being a little bit harder because it can be more of a challenge to navigate those changes. And so this is what I'm hearing Justin when he's talking about that. For me, with my husband, it's a conversation that I have a lot. I think we've thought about if something happened to us, who would care for her. Um, I can have an anxious brain sometimes thinking about 20 years from now what that looks like. And then I have to grab my mind back and say she's still developing. So I've got to walk with her while planning for her. And so, first of all, and Brian is getting ready be tickled with me again. But listen, I'm an advocate for the kids never leaving the house. Period. Right. So, this is
Can I send you mine?
You always trying to send me Aiden, always. But I'm an advocate for that. You will always have a safe space. My mother always gave us a safe space. Although we left the house at 19, 18, we was having our apartments rolling out on our own. So I haven't been back home since, and I'll be 52 this year, right? So it's a long time. But with her, I think about who has the ability to be able to manage her today, expecting her to develop and create and work through some things as she grows older. Parenting is forever, period. And every one of our children may need different things at different experiences. We just are setting up some systems because her challenge may just be a little bit more. And it doesn't have to be about her being echolalic. It doesn't have to be about her being fixated on things. It might just be about, while my 14-year-old might be very quick to get a job, Kayla may have a little bit more of a struggle, and we've got to make room for that. So I do think about that. I think about that with her differently than I think about the others. But for me, I'm going to be parenting them, all of them, even my baby, my oldest baby, who is 31 today. B, can you believe it?
I don't want to talk about it. That's dumb. Like why is CJ 31?
My firstborn is 31 today. I cannot believe that. Like, I'm still 31. Like, what happened? Yeah, so listen, I'm always mom to all of them. But
Um,
Brian, please speak to that after Bernicia speaks.
no, go ahead, Brian. Because I wasn't saying much. Go ahead.
Oh no, it's pretty much the same thing. It's I think my biggest thing is not necessarily about the parenting, but more so about like if something did happen to us, like exactly how would Kayla function, and would she be ready just in case, and then who would be there with her. Um, because we can always say family will do, but that doesn't necessarily mean family will do.
For real.
So yeah, that was always my concern with that. I also had to come to the realization that she's still a child, and that she hasn't fully maximized in all of her spaces, because she's still a child. She's still at the learning stages, even if she was quote unquote a normal child, that she would still be growing in a lot of areas. So I had to allow myself to understand. Oh Lord, that's RJ. Everybody, hello Ronald. He I'll tell you guys about him offline. But I'm glad he's on, because he's, I'm sure, I hope he's definitely paying attention. But yeah, I think that was the most important thing, is to make sure that she was capable of being able to function and being able to take care of herself.
Yeah, I agree. We are at 8:38, and I don't want to hold us too long. Um, I have one question for you, Justin, and then I think I'm going to end if everybody else is well. So if you're not, type your questions in the chat so that I can make sure that we address them. Justin, I have this one question for you. What can the systems, whatever system, the social systems, um, the church, the religious circle, um, social environments, the educational system, family structures, what can those systems do better in order to make room for individuals who are on the spectrum? What would you want them to understand?
Well, with the church first, I think that everything is not the demonic nor schizophrenia. And I think that we need to stop going by pigs in the parlor. I think that we need to stop going by certain individuals that we won't call their name, that just feel like deliverance is a must instead of just a lifestyle. I think that we need to understand as the church that, people come in different packages and they come in with different stories. With the school system, I would say that kids need to not be labeled to the point where parents are given the option of throwing them away after they age out of the system.
Well,
And then and that schools would create, as Dr. Mo Watkins does many times, a safe environment for children to be ministered to, so that they don't wind up being discarded in behavioral programs that lead nowhere. Um, I think that because we don't educate, we have problems. And I think the justice system, with kids that wind up becoming really, really problematic, that there should be, like you said last week, there should be mental health texts on par. So instead of them being treated very harshly, they are able to receive the care that they need.
mhm.
And I've had my run-ins with law enforcement before, and I think that had they understood me a little bit better, it wouldn't have been like they wanted to go throw me away and everything. And thank God I don't have a record and anything like that, but just having to deal with um, just a whole bunch of craziness in my life, and just realizing that if there were talks like this back in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s, maybe it would have been easy for me to transition into adulthood without the difficulties I've had.
Justin, why would you drop a mic like that? So many areas of the system, right? Because that's another thing. In South Florida, guys, we have had at this Publix that's right next to us, there was a cop that there was a person that was having a meltdown, right? The cop couldn't recognize it and ended up shooting and killing the person.
Happened up here. Mm-hmm.
And that happens a lot when people do not understand what they're observing. And this is where the prophetic comes in, right? The exposure of this space for us in our own personal life made us pay more attention. Sometimes that's how things are introduced. We pay more attention when it's introduced to us. And so now my husband talks now about how he can recognize individuals who may have sensory challenges. And we have more grace for that. And we understand how to engage that. But when individuals are not trained to know that there could be more than just rebellion going on, or somebody who is trying to be defiant because of the tantrum or the meltdown on any given day, if Kayla is disturbed because she is still considered nonverbal, she's going to act out in her behavior. And I would hate for someone to harm her because they don't understand that.
Yeah.
I would hate that. And so, Justin, huge spaces, because that's the added thing that comes with being on the spectrum at whatever level, right? Because we have 3 levels. We have spectrum level 1, very functional, just have some deficits, minimal deficits. You could pass as normalized in a normal society and people would think none the wiser, right? Then you have level 2, which is where Kayla has more deficits that she has the ability to develop out of or not. And then we have level 3, which is significant deficits. They may never talk. They might have social issues, social communication issues for the rest of their life. They might have disabilities in addition to that, educational, intellectual disabilities, all of those things that come with that. And so there are varying degrees, which is why it is a spectrum. So nobody knows where people will vary from one space to the other. Elon Musk is on the spectrum and he's in the White House.
It's crazy.
Right. And it's amazing because that's how that intellect, that high functioning brain, that's how it can work like that too.
Well, can we spend some time talking about then the traumas of autism, or the traumas of the spectrum? Because not only do those of us who have level 1, 2, or 3 going on, right? What I became concerned about last week with them phenomenal women we had on is I looked it up and I found out that many people who has many parents whose children have autistic expressions and stuff like that, at some point they battle it too. They mirror or take on some of the traits of their child because of their going back and forth. So sometimes having to minister, and that's why I really appreciated what you did talking with them and even with Justin. But with the ladies, you were trying to find out, how do you get release? Mm-hmm. How do you get a break? Like, how do you do that? Because everybody is caring for the child, mm-hmm. but nobody's caring for the caretaker. Mm-hmm. So those traumas are really important. And you were talking about the Jesus in the Christ, mm-hmm. like the human in this whole thing. Mm-hmm. And life forum makes people, forces us to care and forces us to think about what individuals are going through. I appreciate being a part of it. It's crazy.
Yeah, I do as well. I think that there is there's more conversation that needs to happen around caregivers. I have a husband, and there are single individuals that are doing this work. Bernicia is doing this work by herself. I, I could work with Kayla if I had to, but I am grateful that he's with me because it's a lot of work. The year that we got her diagnosis, she would not sleep. She would sleep for 2 hours and then she'd be up for hours. When I tell you I was caffeinated out, but kept drinking coffee just to maintain her her energy level. I think in the last year, and she'll be 9 in July, she just got on a more normalized sleeping pattern in the last year.
Yeah.
So having support systems, I love our local community here, Evo team. I love us sisters because Kayla gets down with them and they get down with her. Community is important. That support is very special. I am now leaning into my husband saying, go take a nap. Because before I'd be like, I got this. And maybe it was me like hovering Mother Henning. I got this though, leave me alone. I got it. We are right. And I would sit there and look at her and just be praying, God. And that's all I would say. I'd be like, God. He would have to go to work, so he needed his sleep. I was doing other things, but I was going to be in the house, and I would just look at her and say, God, and just keep saying God, and he would send assistance. There is such a need for support communities. These kinds of things break up marriages, as you heard Pilar last week, right? And so a lot of times we've got those issues there, and so support is important. And then not just any support. If people are going to offer support, you have got to be willing to be open enough to learn what support with this type of community means. Because just because you would spank your own nephew for acting out, this act out is for a different reason. And so you got to minister to that differently. So when Justin talks about the behavioral spaces, in our school systems, if you've got bad behaviors, they're putting you in a behavioral school with the intention of you never coming out of that environment. Because once you are labeled that, see, so you're going to get a label one way or another. If you get the label that helps understand what's going on with you, we can provide assistance for that. But then when you refuse and then you get labeled bad behavior because you can't manage your concentration or your hyperactivity, and they put you in a school like that down here, you're not coming out of that. And that's the problem when you walk in denial, because there's assistance for this. There's assistance for whatever deficiency in the moment that's there. But sometimes we want to beat it out of them. And beating it out of someone is never going to happen. That's not the way to approach that, right? So Justin, you said a whole lot of things in your response. It was stellar. Thank you so
Thank
much for that. Yadi is here and she's asking, as a sibling of someone that is disabled, how do we provide support when our parents are sometimes in denial that our sibling will always need assistance? You know what? Sometimes parents, Yadi, can be traumatized. They can still be stuck on the fact that their child is disabled. And so they coddle. We cradle. We're like, oh God. And so we put our minds in a mindset that says, we're always going to take care of this. We're always going to take care of that. It's okay. And we baby people. The goal or the hope would be to allow for additional conversations with parents who are in these spaces. Pray that they would be open, slide some information to them, because most people can be more independent than we think in certain spaces. And if they have the opportunity, they can thrive. but sometimes parents can be so stuck in their traumatic experience about having a child who has a disability that they never move past that space. So encourage them with some more conversation, slide some information, and keep pouring in that way until they can see, and hopefully see sooner rather than later, so that the person that needs support will receive it.
I,
Um,
I also think from that standpoint that parents can also go to the other extreme.
mhm.
Instead of super coddling, they try to act like it's not there.
Yes.
And I think in a lot of cases, in the beginner stages of when I realized that Kayla was on the spectrum, I was there in some cases where it's like she's a regular child.
Mhm.
She's a regular child, and yes, she is. But at the same time, me saying she's a regular child was more so me trying to say I'm not going to do anything different. But I think
Mhm.
that's where the labels come in, where the labels are a benefit because the labels also show you what to do and what not to do. Like
Mhm.
don't you don't add ammonia and bleach together.
Mhm.
So the label says don't add, it's a bleach, don't add ammonia.
Mhm.
Know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
What it does is it doesn't limit you.
Mhm.
It just confirms that you need to go another way.
Which is the anti-difference. I
Yeah.
think that's important.
And the problem is that with a lot of us, we're stuck on doing it the same way.
Mhm.
All the label is saying, it's not saying that you can't do it. You just got to go at another route. But
Mhm.
we're not used to it. The
Mhm.
limitation's not on the child. The limitation's really on your own mind.
Ooh, my, say it again. Say it again.
Limitation's not on the child. The limitation's on your own mind because you're refusing to do something different than what you've been taught and what
Because
you want to do.
yeah, we're comfortable. So it goes back to that anti-difference. We will not, if it doesn't look like, yeah, that's so good.
Hmm.
That's so, it'll challenge you. It'll put you in a space where you're like,
Yeah,
I didn't think I was so rigid. Nope.
yeah,
But something will put itself in front of your face and it'll present itself,
yeah.
right?
So you've got
Go
all
ahead.
of these children. You've got all of these children coming up now, where it's saying, "Well, there's more children now than it's ever been." No, we just got definition for it.
Yeah, I
Not
got it.
not just to say that there's more children. We just see it. We just see it have more definition, and it's more now. It's more visible than what we thought. They're not what we consider crazy or senile.
Mhm.
This it's defined now, and now it's we understand it a lot more now with all of that knowledge and understanding. What are you going to do about it? You're going to
Mhm.
start. You're going to function in the same systems from the church to the schools to everything else. Are we still going to try? Are we still going to manage society in the same system that we've been managing it in
Mhm.
when we know what we know? We
Mhm.
do that. We are the more of the disservice than it is them because we refusing to change. We're refusing not
Mhm.
to grow. We're refusing not to be educated.
Mhm.
I had a young man. I would say I had a young man. I was so annoyed because the pastor said he had a spirit of disobedience because he wouldn't look him in the eye, and he was autistic. Sir, you need to be educated.
Mhm.
That's a demon. That's not a demon of disobedience. That's a demon of your own ignorance.
Ah, that's a demon of your own ignorance.
You need to be delivered,
Come
Pastor.
on, cry loud, spare not, Bishop. Yes, that is so important because see, a lot of people don't think about that. Old school says you shake somebody's hand firmly and you look them square in the eye.
Yes.
But if somebody has an issue with you touching them or having boundaries, Kayla doesn't even hug us face forward.
Mm-mm.
But that's not rebellion.
Mm-mm.
That's just difference. She has a protective space that covers her space, and that's how she protects herself.
Yeah.
We have to oh, we have to open up so much more of this. Dina Sanders, Justin, to your point, she's saying Diane Sanders, traumatic experiences also can sometimes mask the attributes of autism. Yes, especially in Black community, because we are conditioned to carry trauma as if trauma is a way of life. And so we don't even recognize that there are some things that are traumatic, and this is studied, right? Traumatic things can manifest in mood disorder. There's a whole bunch of work and information that goes on with that. And so when we have disease, and when we have these experiences with individuals, and we call everything a spirit, it's an angry spirit, it's this, is that, more than likely you'll find trauma there. And if you have somebody have an experience of liberation, you'll get to see them. Even if they still have difference, you'll get to see them in a healthy experience of their difference. And that's the goal that we want for everyone. That's the goal that we want for everyone. Yadi, I see your response here, because I know that in this culture in South Florida, we have a lot of Hispanic, Latino individuals that kind of refuse to expect anything else than what they are normally used to expecting. And so we have this thought, they'll just be fine. They'll just be fine. They'll just be fine. And sometimes people live with that. And through that, if there is a window of opportunity where you can keep feeding information, keep doing it. Keep doing it, because it'll liberate the parents and it'll liberate your sister, right? Keep feeding information, because sometimes you're not just fighting what's going on in your house, but you're fighting the system of somebody's mind and the culture. And that's a big fight. So keep at that. Keep at that. It's 8:58. We got to get out of here. Justin, come on, have last words for us. I'm so excited that you agreed to do this. Will you come back?
Yes, I will come back. I know you are going to drag me back on here. I think for me, I'm used to doing this because Dr. Mays has been helping me out to get in touch with my emotions from what I went through as a child. And I call her Dr. Pam Burnett, or she should at least be Dr. Pam Burnett, has helped throughout the years to get used to being before people. But what I'll say is that I wish the church would, instead of trying to be so prophetic that we see visions of the future, we could see the destiny of people who are autistic or whatever. And I think until we understand what real apostolic and prophetic ministry is about touching the issues that no one wants to touch, bringing back the headship of Christ to a generation, dealing with character and integrity more than identifying gifting, and building the community of Christ and the believers. I don't think we're going to go much further, but I believe and hope for that we can begin to touch people's lives, that we really could do what my mother has always said, that the apostolic is about forming Christ in you and not about a title, a church plant, or large conferences. So that's all I have to say.
You be saying these mouthfuls and then you just lean on your hand like that so easily and effortlessly. I love that. I love that. We're going to stop because we got to get to prophetic evolution. But this, I keep saying we're finished with it, but it feels like we're not. I don't know what we're going to do with this, guys, but this was tremendous.
A vein. You broke into a vein.
Mm-hmm.
And mental miracles. Maybe part of the mental miracle is talking about it.
Mm-hmm. Maybe so. That's a good observation. We appreciate it. To all of you who have watched or will watch this, I hope that it blesses you, that it expands you, that it helps educate you. Emma saying, thank you, Justin, that you will have more grace in different spaces for any other individuals and ways of looking at things. If you know somebody who needs this particular conversation, please send it out to them. Invite them to listen to it. If they have conversations, or questions, they can always put it in the chat. We always go back and rewatch these things and look for comments that people may have or questions that they may have. And because Justin said he's going to come back, we're going to have him back. Yes. And we may talk about this. I do want you to, Justin, consider, since you're the one that asked me about doing the the mental health, how it influences the prophetic and vice versa. We're prepping to do that in May. I'm going to get in touch with you about what that looks like, and hopefully you'll join that conversation as well. I think that that'll be explosive. Okay, so to all of you who are watching us, listen, thank you so much. We're going to run these announcements and we're going to release our panelists. Listen, Brianna, give us hearts and confetti and all of that stuff. Okay,
There's the hearts.
there's the hearts. There it
There's
is.
the confetti.
There's the confetti, and it's coming. Thank you all for hanging out with us for so long tonight. Go back and rewatch it. And if you have questions, let us know. If you'd like to give or sow into the work of the Evolution Church, where we focus on spirituality, mentality, and creative arts, you can do so by following the link at the bottom. We would love your gifts and we appreciate your support as we do this work and continue to bring information to you that will benefit you. Listen, life is about living your fullest expression, and we talk about all things pertaining to life and godliness. So join us every week if you can, or go back and watch the replay, and we will see you all again next week. Stay tuned for the announcements, and then we'll end on that note. Take care, everybody.
Y'all know what that is? It's amazing.
Evolution Church South Florida would like to invite you to worship with us. You can connect via our second Sunday virtual community or meet us in person for our fourth Sunday experience. Both begin at 3 p.m. sharp. Remember, this is the place where we explore, expand, and evolve. See you soon.